Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to Bifocal Naturalist. Growing up in Mumbai, I was completely unaware of the many rivers of Mumbai. It was only after the devastating floods of 2005 that I came to know about the existence of rivers in Mumbai. We would often call the tiny rivulets as nalas or filthy open gutters. Probably the derogatory terms and the apathy all of us in Mumbai showed towards these water bodies led to their ultimate degradation. More than 99% of Mumbaikars are completely ignorant of the rich marine biodiversity of Mumbai. Though we live on an island city surrounded by the Arabian Sea. Our guest today is Anand Pendharkar. Anand is a wildlife biologist, ecologist, and a social entrepreneur. After teaching at the prestigious Doon School, he started his own environmental consultancy company called The Sprouts. Today, we will be talking about Anand's forthcoming book titled The Coastal Life of Mumbai. This is the second in his series of climate action books. Coincidentally, Anand and I met for the first time on the coast at a marine walk, and his editor, Kamini Gopal, introduced us. And I'm very curious to know how Anand's journey of the coast progressed. Hi, Anand. A warm welcome to you. How are you?
Thank you, Vijaya, for having me over on your podcast. And I'm very, very well. I'm very good. I'm very excited about our upcoming book. Very happy.
Yeah, Anand is working relentlessly, trying to bring about awareness and inculcate the love for marine life among Mumbaikars. So, can you please tell us about your journey, your coastal journey and how it began?
My coastal journey began around 1986-87 when Dr. Chapkar, who was also with the BNHS and the curator of the Tarapurwala Aquarium, they used to lead nature walks in Bombay, in Palghar, in all the neighboring coastal areas. And I remember being completely fascinated by his, narratives and the kind of beautiful things showing us sea stars, showing us corals, showing us sponges. I was completely amazed that, my God, there is such a diverse living forest, as you can call it, under the ocean. And this planet probably should have not been called the Earth. It should have been called water, like Jane Goodall said recently, you know. So, yeah, because with 70% or almost 80%, if you take fresh water included, more than 80% of the land is covered by water. And Bombay is a group of islands. And as islanders, we tend to look at it as mainland. We don't realize we are different than the rest of the country. And we're very unique in a way. So that journey, seeing these creatures right in the city was absolutely fascinating for a 16, 17-year-old boy like me. So, and then when I further sort of explored, I went in our college, I was in Bhavan's college, and we took an excursion to Lakshadweep in 1989. And there I scuba dived and, I did some snorkeling and those huge plate corals and, the large uh, conches and sea cucumbers and things like that. I was a complete, goner. And then from there, I headed to the Wildlife Institute of India to do my master's in wildlife science. But that institute was totally about the Himalaya, the large mammals, and there was not an iota, little bit of mangroves and crocodiles and things, turtles and things like that, but nothing about the marine invertebrates. So I made some futile attempts, to try to get them to teach us as well as give me an opportunity to go to Lakshadweep. But they said, no, no, I think you are a trekker, you're a mountaineer, so why don't you go to the Himalaya instead? So I went to the Tethys Sea. From the Arabian Sea, I graduated to the Tethys Sea and I surveyed and studied wildlife there.
That's really wonderful, All I remember is collecting goggle guys or juhu bead, those colorful, very rainbow colored shells.
Colored shells. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the clam shells, which we used to find everywhere. But today,
Yeah.
I don't think there are any goggle guys or clams available much here today. And
You'll be surprised, Vijaya, that
uh,
actually even today, if you come, there are, what I call them as food malls or food courts of these, marine creatures. There
uh-huh,
are places where literally hundreds of button shells and those, that clams that you were calling, those are called sunset shells. They are
uh-huh,
all over the place. Even with
uh-huh.
1 million people using the place every Saturday, Sunday, that
Acha.
place is yet teeming with life.
Wow, I think I must come one of these days. I was looking at your book, Anand, and
Uh-huh.
especially your A to Z of cuisine fascinated me, and it sent me on a gastronomic, very nostalgic journey. The falooda at Badshah's, and then the Frankies at Sterling, then Batata Vada at Santosh. I mean, it was really, tongue-tickling, mouth-watering journey I had. So I would like to know more about your book because your book has covered so much. We don't talk about people. You've spoken about indigenous people, you've spoken about culture, about biodiversity. I mean, there is so much in your book. It's like a mini encyclopedia. So, can you tell us about your book and a little bit about the foods which are going extinct now? Our childhood food?
So, the food of Bombay has been very diverse all throughout. Some people like eating dabelis, or some people like eating falooda, and then there is, the vada-paos, of course, are there. But if you look at the marine, related foods that are there, whether it is the, uh, prawn cutlets or, fries, as well as Bombay duck or bangda, what it is called, right? That is there. Or you have so many fishes. In surmai is there, pomfrets are there. So different preparations, different communities prepare them differently. And they have names also. The East Indians will have different names and different ways that they will prepare. Some people will use kokum in it. Some people will use coconut in it. Some people might use garam masala. So depending, if you're a Parsi in Bombay, then you prepare different kinds of, there is dansag, there is, or if you're a Goan, there is sakuti. So each of these communities, they bring this whole mixture that is there. So we are so lucky that while we are living on the coast, a same thing like a patole, for example, the konkanis that they make.
Yes.
So they like Pathare Prabhus, they make a dabba ghost that is there. Well, each community has a very, very peculiar and unique kind of thing, and we get that complete mixture. And then there are South Indian, like there is a whole Tamilian community in Sion and that area. There is a whole Malayali population that is there. So they'll also have dry fish being consumed with them. So I, being a foodie, I'm completely enamored by this food. So there had to be a food section, and there are in fact recipes. There are vegetarian recipes and there are some non-veg recipes also in it. But given with that, we also have a section on what ethical consumption is about. Overfishing is a big problem nowadays, and we have a poster which talks about on which month scientifically, based on their breeding cycles, what is the way which fishes should be avoided, which fishes should be consumed, and which should be preferred. So there is a chart that is there, and which is now being followed in the all over the world. In every good restaurant in the world, you'll see there'll be a chart given over there of what is the ethical way to consume. And as you mentioned about communities also, see, conservation cannot be devoid of communities. Otherwise, it is very elitist. It becomes like a what you call fortress conservation. And communities are the real stakeholders. If we take them along with it, we talk about what their access to those places are, whether they are migrants, whether they are residents. We are all migrants. If you look at Bombay, if you look at the history, we have a huge timeline in the book, right from the prehistoric ages till now. Whether it is the Kolis, whether it is the Agris, whether it is the Warlis, whether it is, all of us. It's not just, people from UP, Bihar, or, even Syria and those parts. Everybody on this island is largely a migrant. So what is a resident and what is a migrant? We all now make it our home. So we are co-owners of this place, along with, of course, the coastal creatures. And the leopards. We have to learn to share and live with them. That's the message that we are trying to give.
Yeah, when you were talking about Bombay Duck, when I was in school,
Huh.
my friend invited me for lunch, and then she cooked this Bombay Duck. It was so delicious. So I said, just give me some. I'll try it out at home. And it was a
Uh,
complete disaster because
Disaster.
I didn't know that you had to take off the water, put a weight
Water.
on it. And so I cooked it. It was completely, mushy like a jelly. It was
Yeah.
a Yeah, so you also
Yeah.
need to know the techniques of cooking.
Recipes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe in the future we might have some workshops, food making workshops also related with this.
Yeah. By the way, Bombay duck is a fish and not a duck.
Not a duck. Yeah. So in
Yes.
fact, there's a story in the book. There are a lot of stories, anecdotal stories which are there. See,
Uh,
because everybody doesn't like scientific. It's a non-fiction book, but
mm,
there are stories and there are fables and there are myths and mythologies that are there ingrained in our lifestyle and in our thought process. So what the urban legend? There's a whole story about how the train Bombay Duck, which is to carry the mail from Bombay to Calcutta, used to
uh,
carry this fish and you could smell the train coming. So, the Bengalis used to say Bombay duck. So people thought, the British thought that, oh, they mispronounced the word duck as dark. So they started calling it Bombay duck, not realizing that they're talking about the train which brings the fish over there.
uh,
So, there are many such, how tea is the history. In fact, Bombay has taught the world how to consume chai or tea.
I thought
Uh,
he is from the northeast. Darjeeling se hai.
no, she is originally from China, but
Hmm.
Catherine of Briganza, who sort of, when
Yes.
she got married, the Bombay Islands were given as dowry.
Hmm.
So she imported tea. In fact, I think you're having a cup just now.
Water,
So,
water.
what, okay, haha.
Otherwise, I would have offered you also, sent one cup to you.
Right. So she,
Funny.
started serving tea for all her nobles and her elite guests over there, and
Hmm.
savories with that. And that was a very surprising, drink, which was very oxidative and which was very, energizing, and which was then considered to be a Nobel thing. But then during the World War, Second World War, they could not sell, so much of import was done, but people had started to grow them. They realized that there's a market that these rich people will buy, so
Hmm.
some of the people in Darjeeling and in the mountains they started growing tea. So then where do you sell off the excess tea? You can't export it, etc. So what happened is that they said, okay, let's start. The railways had started by then. The Thane, Bombay, Mumbai, CSTM. That time it was called Victoria Terminus. So that railway had started. So they started selling all the excess chai on the railway station. So the tea has a connection with the railway trains. And
Okay.
then these railway trains also used to be used for transportation of all the elite and other people. But currency, there was no coins and money at that point. There were cowries being used. And cowries were also used for buying and selling of slaves. So the British, to abolish slavery and to encourage business and trade, a common trade, they started the Bombay Mint and coins were minted, especially for Mumbai. It was a state, Bombay Presidency state, and there was a mint which was minting coins. That Bombay Presidency, is from Karwar to Karachi. So when in the olden days, when anybody used to say Bombay, you had to ask whether they're talking of the Bombay Islands or whether they're talking of the Bombay state.
Okay.
And many times, we've done 135 years of research for this book, all the data that we've gleaned. So we had to constantly see whether, when they're talking of a species being found, we have documented more than 800 species, whether they're talking of the Bombay Islands. By the way, there was a name during Alexander's time. It was called Heptanasia. Hepta means seven.
Uh-huh. Oh.
So Heptanasia, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So and actually Bombay is some people say that it's from Mumba Devi, which is actually a Kutchi god, a goddess from Kutch, which is yet worshipped over there. So the Kolis came from that area, so they got their goddess from there. But that temple is like hardly, it's a very recent, construction. But Bom in Portuguese means safe or, good.
Hmm.
So Bombay has a very safe bay. It has a very deep hull where, it has a natural deep harbor. So because of that, they used to call it the Bom Bay, from which the word Bombay or Mumbai or Bombain, there were so many, nasal pronunciations that came with that. So many of these stories and small narratives are there as anecdotal box items in the things. Experts have written these. These are historians and archaeologists and anthropologists who've written these stories. So there are more than 15 such stories. There's also one about the symbolism as to how fish symbolism comes in your jewelry, it comes in your prayers. There are uh, what you call Tulsi Vrindavans, which are there with fishes on them. The Kolis have those, or the earrings that they wear, or even the, Haldi Kumkum ka jo koiri hota hai, uske andar fish shaped ones. So all those kind of things are also been put into
Oh,
the thing.
fish is
So
supposed to be
culture
very,
and
a fish is supposed to be very auspicious. Even the
yes,
Bengalis, they first give a fish, when the new bride comes to the house, a live fish is
correct.
handed over by the mother-in-law.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
it's
actually,
auspicious.
in the Manusmriti, if you say the, fish, that's the first life form. In the various avtaras of
Yes,
Vishnu, the
yes,
first is the Matsya avatar. So, that
yes.
is how many communities also believe in it.
Correct, correct. So, I would like to know more about the archaeological evidence. What are these? There's a huge rock, monolithic rock in Mumbai. And I was there recently, and it's in such a bad state with slums around and huge skyscrapers that the beauty of this is completely gone. Can you tell us about it?
So, what you're talking about is called the Gilbert Hill. It's
Yes,
in
Gilbert.
Andheri. In fact, my
Yes,
college, Bhavan's college, is like right next door from there.
yes.
And that area, in fact, was formed even before the concept of India was formed.
Mm-hmm.
It is from 66 million years ago. And in fact, India had just broken off from Madagascar and Seychelles and Antarctica and those parts and
Uh-huh.
started to drift and float. So, earlier, if you see the whole, what you call as the continental drift theory, so,
Mm.
there was something called as the Gondwana land.
Yes.
And yes, from that, India was connected to Africa and Madagascar actually right next.
Mm.
And we could walk from Bombay to Seychelles to Madagascar to a little further to Antarctica also.
Uh,
You know, so in different time periods they broke out, but when India separated from them, it started sort of floating. There was a huge volcanic activity that happened around 66 million years ago, and
mhm.
this huge monolith, 110 feet monolith, which came, popped out. It's like a vent, and there are columnar basalts over there. It's a very unique formation. There are two other places like this in the world, the other two being in America. And this should have been a national monument of, of global fame. Like we have the Lonar crater, this is one of a kind that we have. It should, be given such important status rather than those ugly, bathroom tile lined religious structures that we have. And then there are staircases put over it. Of course, almost 40% of that monument has been broken out. And actually, if people want to know, the dinosaurs were not even, they had not even evolved, started to
Right.
occur. Forget getting extinct. So this is a pre-dinosaur era structure that we have, the evidence that is there. Besides that, the other archaeological finds, which are from the Stone Age human settlements in Mumbai, so they are there along. There's a place called Mahikavati. You must have been there sometime.
Is it in
The place
Bangalore?
Mahim today,
Hmm.
it's Mahim. It used to
Mahim.
be called
Okay.
Mahikavati,
Okay.
Mahikavati in the past, or
Uh-huh.
all along the Oshivara River. In fact,
Okay.
the station should have been, called Oshivara instead of Ram Mandir, because
Huh.
the Oshivara River is a very, very important river system for Bombay. There is Poisar also, there is Daisar River. So these are some of the Bombay Island besides the Mithi, which floods so frequently. But there are a lot of archaeological remains that are there, and communities, who used to travel from Africa, from these other parts of the world in Middle East, used to come, and there is a place called Sopara, not Nala Sopara, but Sopara. Sopara was a port which is since 800 to 1,000 years has been in existence, and there used to be an active trade that used to happen. And in
Mm-hmm.
fact, the Godbandar Creek had pirates in it. So they had to, the boats had to come, wait outside in the sea,
Huh.
down their lights, and slowly in the middle of the night they had to come,
True.
and they used to trade horses over there.
Uh-huh.
The Arabian horses used to be brought and traded to the capital of Maharashtra,
Mm-hmm.
which was not Mumbai, of course, at that point of time. Mumbai was a malaria and mosquito infested sleepy islands at that point of time. So actually Python was the capital. So from the Kane, where the Kanheri caves have formed,
Mm-hmm.
from there they used to go. So they used to come to the creek of Godbandar.
Mm-hmm.
The Bandar means not monkey but a port. So where the horses are unloaded, and then they used to go through the forests over there, sell them over there, and come back. So whatever they carried, all the money, all the resources that they carried, used to be given to the Buddhist monks in Kanheri caves. And there are inscriptions over there which talk about the first fixed deposit of money being deposited over there
Uh-huh.
800 years ago. As to this much is given, after so many moons, this much amount will be given. That is written in a, there are multiple scripts that are there and which have been deciphered also. So
Mhm.
there is so much of history and stories that are there. And that's why these caves, although they might seem far away from the coast and the lighthouses and the forts might be more prominent, every island of Bombay to protect itself had a fort. The Worli Island had a Worli fort and a lighthouse over there. Similarly, Kulaba, Little Kulaba had its own fort. Bandra has its own fort. Mahim, actually, if you see near Mahim Causeway, that has its own fort. So each island had its fort. In fact, Mazgao was like the best island at that point of time. It was most active, all religious, intermixing. Even today, you'll see some of the oldest churches and synagogues and temples and gurudwaras being there. So,
Yes.
that whole area was a very, very melting pot of culture and history for Mumbai.
Yes.
And I think
I was.
today's day and time, people they will have to read through probably at least we've read through probably 600-700 books and over 1,000 reference papers. So all that has been put together for them in 300 pages.
So
So
how
it's
long
a
did
ready
you take?
regular
How long did you take to, come out with this book?
book. So our research work started in my early explorations of 86, 87, 88. I've been documenting it for over 30 years now, almost
Mhm.
36 years that I've been collecting this data of the marine environment.
Mhm.
In fact, we created India's first marine biodiversity app in 2021.
Mhm.
And then that time we started in 2020, 1920. I was not even there. So in 2020, we started this writing of and designing of the book. But
Okay.
as we started doing it, we found so many related stories, and then we had to find the experts also to write that. We didn't want to, although there are 10 authors already, we wanted to have some more experts, collaborative effort. So it took us more than 4 years to write this, to design this. But in the meanwhile, simultaneously, we already wrote out the Climate Action Year's primer. Actually, this is a part of a 7-book series. It's
Hmm.
called the Climate Action series. So this was supposed to be the first book, but it was taking so much of designing. We had illustrations, watercolor illustrations, digital illustrations, and maps and timelines. So we said, okay, we'll give it its own time. It has to come out at the right time. And then we came out with a 600 Climate Action Years primer. That came out, and then now this is going to be the second book. And there are 5 more books in the pipeline.
Wow, it's quite a series of climate action books. Anand, there are so many people, we say they're native to India, many of them are native to Mumbai. You have the Kolis, you have the East Indians, who have converted to Catholicism. And then you have the Konkani Muslims, then you have these Pathare Prabhus,
Absolutely.
there's so many of them, so I would like to know more about them, the different
So,
cultures and
yeah. So, like I said earlier, native is a very is a misnomer of sorts.
uh,
I think uh, how long back should one go to say one is a native of some place? You know. So somebody came 800 years ago, somebody came 1,000 years ago, somebody came 2,000 years ago, somebody came in the stone, maybe in the Stone Age. So, but these islands were not inhabited; they were neighboring, islands. So, in fact, the 7 islands then got connected by the British with the what is called as the suburban Mumbai. So that was the Salsette Island or the Chashti Island. And then even today you have the Mud Island where
yes.
Marve and Mud Island is there. There was also the Gharapuri Island, which is called Elephant Island today. Then you have Nava and Sheva Islands. Then you have all these islands yet exist. Even today it is an archipelago, right? So people who used to live in Uran, people used to live in, let's say Kelve or those parts, Vasai, they used to come to fish in this area. They used to come to catch mud crabs and they used to go back. There was no permanent residence earlier. Maybe 800 to 1,000 years ago, there was no permanent residence. Some bits of remnants were there on the Salsette Island, but these islands were not that heavily livable. Because, actually in Parel and all these parts, like you see in Powai or you see in, let's say, Bandra, the hill road area, there were
Mm.
huge hills. There were hills over there, so which had to be broken. There was no livable area per se. They were pretty steep hillocks that were there. They were all volcanic in origin and they had basalt on them. So they were all broken. And then when they were put into the sea, we created Kulaba reclamation, we created Bandra reclamation. And then we created livable land for people to start residing in these islands.
Yeah,
So 1200, 1300,
I
yeah,
read a book, Anand, at the Asiatic Library. It was written by a Britisher when he had come to Mumbai. I think he was some officer there. And he wrote that Mumbai is surrounded by hills. And there are so
yeah,
many
yeah.
within Mumbai. He says this is excellent. We can just chop the hills and reclaim the land, fill it up with the sea and
So
get land. I mean, he was very happy. He says we've got all the natural resources, right here in
we
Mumbai.
we we yet have places called Antop Hill, Kambala Hill, Pali Hill.
Yeah.
So these places, there were far more number of hills which were there. But
Yes.
with this, I want to put a kind of a rider over here, a disclaimer that if we start chopping these hills, our mangroves will automatically get destroyed. Mangroves need the silt coming from these hills. So, like, you see the Malabar Hill now, for
Hmm.
example. So, there is a little rivulet, that stream that passes through Banganga tank and comes down at Girgaon Chowpatty. So, because of the destruction and the over construction over there, see if the Hanging Garden and Kamala Nehru Park, they get destroyed,
Hmm.
and whatever the plans of road and other things, other constructions are there, naturally the mangroves and other parts, the whole coastal ecosystem will get destroyed. So Vikhroli mangroves that we are seeing, or the mangroves we see at Ulve and all that, they are because there were hills behind it. And those hills used to bring streams of fresh water. See, mangroves are salt tolerant plants,
Yes.
but they need regular influx of fresh water. The minute you stop the fresh water, and typically what people who want to destroy mangroves they do is they create a embankment, either a mud embankment or a cement embankment. And
Yes.
once the fresh water is disconnected, the mangroves will start dying. Too much of salinity is not good for them. There are some mangroves which are towards the sea, but a lot of mangroves are towards the freshwater side. So, that creek area, the estuarine, brackish water combination, they need that freshwater influx. And the silt that brings with it, that brings in the crustaceans, your diatoms that are there, your all the things that bring the flamingos to Bombay also in a way. The fishes, earlier in the Ullas River, pomfrets used to come and breach about 50 years ago.
Uh-huh.
So, those populations have died out and we can revive. If we just clean up the Ullas River and we clean up the Thane Creek, maybe the flamingo numbers might go down, but definitely pomfrets will come back. The Bombay duck population will increase. So our fish catches will increase. Maybe, of course, crab populations will increase. So the migratory bird populations will also.
Anand, you've told us so many interesting things, but I'm dying to know more. So, can you give us the highlights of the book?
Yeah. So one that it's a all color book. There are, it's a close to 300 pages book. It's an A4 size, and there are paperback and hardbound book. We have some 100 plus illustrations, watercolors and digital illustrations, which are covering, communities and landscapes as well as people and food, all the boats, fishing nets, etc. That is there. There are sections, as I told you, about the history, about the geography and the geology. There are sections on the archaeology and the built environment also, things about the Art Deco buildings, which are such unique, thing on the Marine Drive and various parts of Bombay. Then there is an entire section on the marine biodiversity. There is like more than 50% of the book is covering the species, all the different species. So there are all the marine plants. In fact, there is one special section on marine fungi. And there is then all the marine invertebrates and vertebrates that are there, including birds and butterflies and frogs, dragonflies, so things which are found in fresh wetlands around what are called as wetland associates or coastal associates creatures.
Mhm.
So it is not a marine book; it is a coastal book. That's the
Coastal.
differentiation between that. So the marine environment, there are different landscapes. We're taking the deep sea, the coastal, what you call as the intertidal zones. So
Mhm.
you also have rock pools and tide pools that have been talked about, and then you have these Taifa and Besharam wala plant ka freshwater lakes which are next to that. So the rails and the crakes and the kingfishers
Mhm.
and the frogs which are there, but also the dragonflies that might be there in that area. the forests that are like Sanjay Gandhi National Park, for example, has the Chenna Creek passing through it, which has got mangroves, and you got mangrove associates with that. And the marine fungi, they are found under the sea, they are found in the coastal waters, and they are found in fresh waters. So people don't know that there are fungi found underwater also.
Mhm.
And there is one unique story which is there, which is connecting the ocean with the creatures of the mountains. And I'm not going to disclose what it is about. I want people to buy the book and read it and get information about that. सब कुछ तो बता नहीं सकते ना.
नहीं 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 नहीं
So
बिल्कुल नहीं
so yeah. And then, of course, there is one section on the endangered species and the scheduled species that are there. So that we tell people what not to buy. There is a clear understanding that, whether it is for jewelries or for curtains or for other forms, that people are using shells and other things, or even just for random collections. That is itself can be harmful. And how to celebrate responsibly. Sprouts has been working with the Eco Ganesha, with Celebrate Responsibly kind of, helping. We've been doing beach cleanups for almost 15, 20 years now. So that's the idea that, how can we create a sustainable city? So since it's a part of the climate action series, there is a lot of emphasis on the sustainable development goals that are there as to, creating nature parks, creating, mangrove restoration work that can be there, and lifestyle changes also that people can bring in. How do they appreciate? See, first, learn to love. There are 800 species which are sharing this landscape with you. So learn them, know who your neighbors are, be a good citizen, and give them space also to stay in this city. And they will give you a lot of what I call as ecosystem services. They will, control mosquitoes for you. They will control malaria and dengue for you. They will give you beautiful songs. They'll give you beautiful fragrances, and then maybe soups to have, and ice creams to make, and yeah, fish ticklers, etc., etc. To enjoy macher jhol also that one can have.
it's interesting but do you have anything on butterflies also because I came with
Yes, yes.
butterfly walk with you once yeah
Yeah, we almost close to over 20 years back we had
yes
met
over
with the
20 years
namunas
when
at Navi Mumbai.
yes when Kamini's son was a baby and she had him on her backpack
Back, yeah,
carrying
yeah.
him
So in
yes
fact, Kamini is the editor of this book also.
yes
Kamini
yes
is sitting in Kodaikanal and she's editing the book. So,
uh,
we've not left those connections. Those connections are yet going on.
yes
The
very
coastal
much
connections are
there
yet so that's the thing. So we've, restricted this book below the Ghodbandar Creek and west of the Thane Creek. We've not gone towards the Navi Mumbai side because then, it can keep extending. So we've
true
kept to the island city. That's the geographical expanse that we've kept with.
Hmm.
Also Vasai Creek and going further till the Vaitarna and I'm sure Palghar and all those parts, the Mumbai metropolitan region, someday we might come up with something about
Correct.
that. But currently, and this took us 4 years to put together. So yeah, and with 10 authors, we have amazing people like Kurush Dalal also who's written chapters for us. There is his student Riddhi, and then my whole team, Rahul, Amruta, Siddharth, Sneha, Nikhil, who's written some fantastic, there are some very, very nice articles that he has written,
but
as well as photographs. There are more than 800 photographs, actual good quality photographs, which you
uh,
can be used for identification.
but
Uh,
how do you manage to work with so many people? I
so
mean,
that is, something
have
that I
your topics very frozen and watertight.
actually
How was it?
Actually not, we let people pick up some things. Some things I maybe have, pushed them down their throat and said, okay, you got to write this things. But I think people picked up, that's what the best part of a collaborative project like this is, that like Vikram Pawar and his team from Sehek, they volunteered to take up the book, which was stuck and to clear out the designing part. And his team has added their own, Anushri and Surabhi, they have added their own special touch to the book, the illustrations. Yogesh Wagmare has given some illustrations. Neha Patel, Nikhil Disoria, they've also done illustrations. There is Miss Patel from Navi Mumbai. So she is also, so there are multiple illustrators. Daniel Lewis has done a lot of illustrations. He's done our first illustrations also. So, I think one has to, that has been my forte. I think I'm very good at networking. I'm very good at working with multiple people. And you have to play to the strengths of these people that is there. Uh, the best part we did is this entire book has been done during the lockdown. So we worked on Google Docs. We worked virtually.
Mm-hmm.
Amruta is in Bangalore, Rahul is in Pondicherry, Sneha is in Canada, Siddharth is in Rajasthan, Kamini is sitting and editing from, Kodaikanal. And Vikram's team is designing the book in Malad in their own office. So we are all virtually, working on things. Kurush and his teams, they send it on a Google Doc. So, I think we can leverage the value of, internet and the new technology that has come in.
Yes.
And these kind of collaborations are possible then
No, geographies do not matter today. Where you
in
are,
today's day.
it
Yeah.
simply doesn't matter. I think, Anand, thank you very much. It was a very engaging discussion. You took us through culture, cuisine, biodiversity, archaeology, architecture, and indigenous people. I mean, it was a fantastic journey. And, just like how we started our coastal journey together, at least my coastal journey started with you. You progressed, way ahead. And I wish you all the best for your book. And,
Thank you.
it be in the hands of everybody in the libraries. That is very important. So children can read, the young people can read, and they can translate it into action.
This book is for everybody.
Yeah.
There are activities for children, there are activities for seniors. It's an activity-oriented book. You can actually, where even a Mumbaiker can go and explore and find new places and new things from the book. And as a
Uh-huh.
tourist, of course, there's a great amount of possibility that is there. And
Mhm.
finally, colleges and schools and corporates, they can take this for their library. They can use that. We're hoping that this will become uh, like a guidebook for people who want to take climate action, what is called as SDG 13, that they
Uh,
can actually take
yeah.
action with this. It's not just to listen and say wow and forget about it. We want people to take action based on
Action.
that.
No, because the new education policy is stressing on internships, climate
Correct.
action internships. So I think that
Right.
is where your book will be really useful, across colleges and high schools. I think it'll be very, very useful. Thank you again, Anand, and I hope to meet you
Thank you,
again
Vijaya.
sometime. Yeah, thank you. Take care.